Our film begins in Scotland in 2008. A highly dangerous and contagious plague has spread, its symptoms causing flesh-eating decay until the infected person dies. Naturally, the government imposed a curfew at the British border near the infected zone and built a massive wall to prevent any infected individuals from leaving the city and spreading the plague further. Later, a group of survivors arrives at the wall, desperate to cross before they succumb to the infection. A police officer tries to turn them back, but suddenly spots an infected person among them. He opens fire, shooting randomly, killing many people. Massive chaos ensues, leading to fierce clashes between the crowd and the police. In the midst of this, we see a little girl in her mother's arms, shot in the eye. This girl, named Sinclair, will grow up to be the film's protagonist, so keep an eye on her. Anyway, when the army and police realize the situation is out of control, they retreat behind the containment wall and seal it behind them. A few soldiers board a helicopter, and the mother begs them to take her daughter, Sinclair, so she can have a chance to live. A soldier named Nelson takes the girl from her, and the mother gives him a piece of paper with her name and address, telling him to return her daughter if things ever go back to normal. Here, the military and police establishments abandon the people to die, leaving the city without any aid. Of course, entry or exit through the wall is strictly forbidden. Over time, the plague spreads more and more. Due to the lack of governance in this quarantined country, massive chaos erupts. Murder, theft, and rape become rampant. With no food or resources entering, people literally resort to cannibalism until Scotland is entirely depopulated. Or at least, that's the narrative Britain exports to the rest of the world. Fast forward 27 years to 2035, and the story shifts to London. We see a grown-up Sinclair, now an officer in the British police force. She is on a mission with a colleague and uses an artificial eye, throwing it into a location to act as a remote camera connected to her watch, allowing her to monitor the situation. A shootout occurs between them and a gang, but Sinclair, being a highly skilled officer, takes them down and safely exits the operation. Later, we see Sinclair sitting and reading the envelope with her mother's name on it. She then inserts the artificial eye, which is actually a camera, into the socket where her real eye was shot out when she was young. Nelson, the officer who took her in years ago and is now the Minister of Internal Affairs, walks in and finds Sinclair still holding on to her mother's envelope. She tells him she doesn't even remember what her mother looked like, and all she has is an address for a place she can't even enter. Nelson advises her not to look back, but to focus on a better future, praising her hard work and skill, assuring her she will reach high ranks if she focuses more on her career. Later, the police raid a drug gang, and during the shootout, they are shocked to discover a large group of people infected with the exact same plague that devastated Scotland years ago. We then see Hatcher, the British Prime Minister, whose chief of staff informs him they have discovered a massive number of infected individuals and must declare a state of emergency. Nelson and all the ministers prepare and hold a meeting to find a quick solution before the situation spirals out of control. They agree they must close all entrances and exits to the city so the disease doesn't spread to other cities, causing even greater casualties. Nelson objects, saying they are repeating exactly what they did years ago in Scotland, leaving millions of people to die. He proposes they must quickly find a cure for the disease. Canaris replies, callously arguing that it doesn't matter if some poor people die, as it would relieve them of their responsibility so the rest can live comfortably. Hatcher interrupts him and asks Nelson to join him in his private office. There, Canaris takes the lead, revealing highly classified information. British satellites photographed the supposedly abandoned Scotland years ago. Shockingly, they found humans still living there, perfectly healthy. He explains that years ago, a virologist named Dr. Kane was working on an antidote for the virus. He had sent distress signals urging them to focus on manufacturing the cure. However, the British government completely ignored the issue and left them to face their fate alone. Canaris believes Dr. Kane successfully created the cure, which is why people survived the disease and are still alive today. He asks Nelson to deploy a force of his most elite police officers into Scotland to search for Dr. Kane and bring him back, or retrieve the cure he invented or his research, so they can manufacture it here and save the infected, since Nelson is against leaving them to die. He adds that the operation must be completed within 48 hours, no more. I don't know why they don't just say within 2 days. They always have to make 48 hours sound dramatic. Anyway, Nelson later meets with Sinclair and assigns her this mission, as she is the most capable person on his team. He then brings her to Canaris, who explains exactly what she needs to do and where Kane is located. He tells her a police team will be waiting for her at the containment wall to execute the mission together. He gives her a GPS device so they can monitor their every move in real time. He warns her that if they don't find a cure, she's better off staying in the infected city. 3 hours later, Sinclair arrives at the containment wall and meets Sergeant Norton. He introduces her to the rest of the team: Chandler, Reed, Miller, and Carpenter. They are preparing their equipment and armored vehicles to set off on the mission. He also introduces her to the virologists, Talbot and Sterling. They will accompany the team to identify the research and cure in case Kane is not found alive. Talbot tells her he was working on an antiviral, but Canaris ordered him to stop before he could finish it. This guy is bad news, trying to wipe out the masses so he and his wealthy elite can live comfortably. Anyway, after Sinclair meets the whole team, they move out, opening the wall's gates and crossing to the other side. After a long journey, the men finally arrive at Dr. Kane's laboratory. The entire team disembarks, leaving only Reed and Chandler inside the armored vehicles, as they are the drivers. The team enters the building and begins searching for the cure. Suddenly, a bizarre-looking person appears and kills Carpenter. At the same time, Chandler sees a girl standing outside the armored vehicle. She looks sick, so he steps out to check if she's infected or normal. When the gunfire starts, he pulls her inside the vehicle with him. If he had a brain, he wouldn't have brought her inside the vehicle. Meanwhile, inside the building, a massive crowd of people attacks the rest of the team, resulting in intense, brutal clashes. These attackers use spears, arrows, and sharp weapons. The team fires back with rifles, killing many of them. A group of the attackers then swarms the armored vehicles, throwing fire at them. Reed and Chandler start fleeing the area with the attackers in hot pursuit. We see the girl inside the armored vehicle suddenly stand up and stare intensely at Chandler. Before she dies, she throws a grenade at him, completely obliterating the armored vehicle. Reed manages to reach the back door of the building, and the team escapes by the skin of their teeth. As they board the remaining armored vehicle, someone shoots an arrow at Reed, and tragically, she dies. The armored vehicle then flips over with them inside and catches fire. The team is forced to abandon the vehicle, leading to another fierce confrontation with these savage attackers. A chaotic shootout and explosions ensue. It's an absolute slaughter. The attackers manage to kill Miller and kidnap Talbot. However, Norton and Sterling manage to escape. As for Sinclair, the attackers decide to leave her for their leader, Saul, to have some fun with. They take her to Saul. He beats her a bit and then asks who sent them there. Sinclair tells him the plague has returned to Britain, and they need Dr. Kane for the cure he invented. Saul tells her, "Now you remember there's a country called Scotland, after you left us for the disease to eat our bodies. It's because of you we became like animals, eating each other." He continues, saying he had been waiting a long time for anyone to come from behind the containment wall so he could exact his revenge. Finally, his dreams have come true, and he's going to eat her and all her colleagues. He then locks her in a room and leaves. Outside, they are throwing a massive party to celebrate their victory. They use the captured officers for dinner, tying Talbot up and roasting him alive over a fire to eat him at their leisure. They then start cutting into his flesh with knives, swarming over him like animals. We cut back to Sinclair, who has managed to break free from her handcuffs. A gang member comes in, tosses her a piece of meat, and tells her to taste her colleague's flesh, saying it tastes great. She approaches the door, grabs him tightly by the earring he's wearing, and orders him to open the door. When he opens it, she brutally kills him, then goes out and kills the other guards sitting outside. As she walks, she finds a girl named Cappy locked in a room. Cappy says, "I heard you telling Sol you came here to meet Kane. Help me get out of here and I'll take you to him." Sinclair asks if she knows where he is. Cappy says, "He's my father. Yes, I know where he is." Just then, Sol's terrifying girlfriend arrives and finds Sinclair escaping. She attacks Sinclair with swords, and the two engage in a fierce fight. Ultimately, Sinclair decapitates her. She then opens the door for Cappy, and the two escape. Cappy takes her to the train station, where her friend Joshua is waiting. Sinclair contacts Norton and Sterling, telling them her location so they can join her. The men head toward the train station. However, Soul and his men discover Sinclair has escaped and go searching for her. They run into Norton and Sterling and chase them until they reach the train station. Sinclair helps them board the train, killing a few of the attackers in the process. She then asks to board as well. They finally escape those terrifying people. On the way, Cappy tells them she will help them reach Kane, but won't go with them because he will kill her. He has built a city for himself where he rules as absolute dictator. He has become a tyrant. Furthermore, ever since Soul rebelled, left him, and became a king in his own territory, Kane has grown even more insane, torturing and killing anyone who disobeys him. When he finds out they came from behind the containment wall, he will kill them. Not just because of his enmity toward the British authorities for leaving them in this dire situation. Sinclair asks her, "What were you doing with Soul?" She replies that Soul is her brother, and she went looking for him because she still cares about their blood ties. She explains that he and Kane are fighting a massive war because each wants to be the supreme leader of the region, and she is caught in the middle of these two lunatics. Curse them both. Later, the group arrives at the city where Kane lives. To reach his headquarters, they pass through a dark tunnel, lighting some wood to illuminate the way until they reach the other side. There, they sense someone approaching. Cappy says it must be Kane's guards and runs away with Joshua and Sterling. However, Sinclair and Norton stay behind. She says she won't run. She wants them to take her to Kane. The guards attack the young men, killing Joshua and surrounding Cappy and Sterling. Meanwhile, a guard approaches Sinclair and Norton. They drop their weapons and she tells him she wants to see Kane. We then see the guards tying them up with ropes and taking them to Kane's headquarters. When they arrive, they find him living in a massive castle, surrounded by many people and soldiers living a primitive lifestyle, traveling on horseback and using swords and shields as weapons, like something out of the Middle Ages. The group is brought before Kane inside the castle. He asks them why they are there. Sinclair tells him they want the cure he invented. He replies that he didn't invent anything because he lacked the resources to create it after the British authorities abandoned him. Simply put, the people living there had extremely strong immune systems, and the virus couldn't attack them. So, he gathered all those with strong immunity, isolated them from the rest of the contaminated world, and they live here in peace. He then begins cursing her, those who sent her, and those who brought her. He gloats, telling her that the disease she's facing is the exact same one they left them to die from years ago. He says, "Let the plague end everything for you, just as you left us to end." We cut back to London, where the plague has spread massively, and the situation is completely out of control. An infected person breaks into the Prime Minister's headquarters and approaches Hatcher to kill him. Nelson shoots the infected man in the head, blowing it apart, but his blood splatters all over Hatcher's face. The infection has now been transmitted to him. Canaris orders him to be isolated in a room alone. The Prime Minister then takes a gun and shoots himself. We return to Kane, who has tied up Cappy. He tells her, "You brought these people here to contaminate our beautiful world," and orders her to be tortured. Indeed, one of his men burns her with fire. Kane then orders Sinclair to be released from her cell to face one of his men in a combat duel, a display of power. However, Sinclair holds her ground and manages to hold him off. At the same time, Kane's men go to retrieve Norton and Sterling to force them into a duel as well. But the young men overpower them, take their keys, lock them in the cell, and escape. They enter another room, find explosives, take them, and leave. We return to Sinclair, our favorite, who is taking a serious beating but ultimately kills the man. Then, a massive explosion occurs. Naturally, Norton and Sterling are responsible. They engage in a brutal fight with Kane's men for a while before escaping the castle. At that moment, one of Kane's soldiers aims an arrow to end Sinclair, but Norton shoots him, saving her. The young men then take Cappy with them, mount horses, and head back to the tunnel they originally came from. When they arrive, they enter and lock the door behind them. Inside, Norton manages to turn on the electricity, and they discover the place is stocked with numerous resources. They find a car, locate some gasoline to fuel it, and even find telephones. They take everything that could be useful. They also discover an electrically operated door leading to a completely different path that connects to the British border. At this time, Kane's men arrive safely at the tunnel. The group gets into the car and waits by the door for Norton to set the mechanism so the door will close automatically behind them once they pass through. Unfortunately, he doesn't make it to them in time because Kane's men arrive and kill him. The group takes off and escapes at the very last second before they are killed as well. They finally make it out of that place. On their way, Sinclair contacts Nelson, telling him she has the cure. He hands the phone to Canaris, who has become Prime Minister after Hatcher's death. She tells him to keep the line open to track her location so they can send a plane to extract them. Of course, you think the action is over. No, my friend. There's still some more action you're going to love. While on the road, Saul and his men ambush them, leading to a massive car chase. That idiot Saul jumps onto Sinclair's car and tries to kill her by any means. One of his men also jumps on Sterling. Cars are flipping over and exploding. People are dying. It's top-tier action and entertainment, my friend. In the midst of this battle, Sinclair manages to throw Saul out of the car, but that demon climbs back onto the roof of the car and tries to reach her. However, a bus is parked in the middle of the road. Sinclair crashes into it, passes through to the other side, and an explosion occurs. Saul is definitely dead. We then see Canaris arrive in a plane. Sinclair gets out of the car and activates the recording technology in her artificial eye using her watch. She goes to talk to Canaris, telling him the cure exists in Cappy's blood due to her strong immunity, and from her blood they can manufacture the serum. Canaris, as we know, is a corrupt man. He tells her he's going to let the disease spread a little longer until a massive number of people die, so that the survivors, the wealthy elite, can live in peace and enjoy the world to themselves. They'll suffer in this life and the next, guys. He plans to release the serum after some time, claiming he just discovered it, so that in the eyes of the entire world, he will be the hero who saved their lives. Sinclair sends Sterling and Cappy with him, but she stays behind because this is originally her homeland. She goes to the house whose address her mother left in the envelope with Nelson. Nelson arrives shortly after and chats with her for a bit. Sinclair then gives him the flash drive containing the recording of Canaris and tells him to leak it to the other ministers so the infected can be treated as soon as possible. Indeed, after Nelson leaves, all the evidence is leaked online. Canaris gets totally screwed over. Afterward, Sinclair goes to Saul's men, carrying his decimated head. She asks them, "So, you want a new leader to command you?" The group welcomes her and hands her the leadership. She will establish her own state, far away from all this political nonsense. And here, the film ends.